This is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with Ben Thomas. Ben is the current drummer for Rag and Bowman, and he's a drum tutor at BIM. Hi, Ben.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
What age did you get into drums, and when you first started playing, what bands or artists inspired you?
Okay, that's an easy one. I've had to answer this a few times, but it was the age of 11 and Nirvana, Dave Grohl. Very simple answer. Basically heard Nevermind, and it was just like, yeah, that sounds like that's pretty cool. And then that was it, man. And then got into bands from there. Ended up playing those tunes and tunes like that, and probably annoying people in school parents' evenings and stuff like that. But it was cool, man. Loved it, and then was just hooked ever since.
Cool. And what was your first drum kit?
First drum kit. It was. Oh, I remember this actually very well. It was a wine red performance percussion kit, if you remember them.
Yeah.
Starter kits. That got me through a fair few gigs. Went to pick it up from a dude's house with my dad. Yeah, about 6 months after playing drums. He didn't get me a kit initially because it was like, you're going to stick with this. Because he plays guitar and did play in a band as well. So I was trying to sort of do guitar before that and did a bit of it and then just thought, no, this ain't for me. And then, drums. And he was like, okay, cool. It's sticking. Let's get you a kit. And it was a nice wine red performance percussion 5-piece kit.
Nice. And I get to this point in the interview and I generally ask, do you still have that kit in your collection? But I think I know the answer.
Unfortunately not, no. It would be cool. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's still knocking about somewhere.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember who I sold it to. But it would be a cool thing to have, I guess. But
yeah.
Sadly not.
Probably not a cool thing to have to gig or maybe record on. But I like with my I had what did I have? A Session Pro, so a similar level like entry level kit where the cymbals you can just bend them, the wrong way around. Yeah. And
I was fortunate enough to have an all right set of cymbals actually. So I think we went to I don't know if it's still there, a shop called GJ Percussion over in Eastbourne. Okay. This is going way back now. This is going way back. I don't know if it's still there. It might be. And this dude with a kind of like really nice collection of just used and I think new and used stuff. But yeah, we picked out a few cymbals. I knew nothing about cymbals. My dad was like, "How about this one? This one?" I was like, "Yeah, cool." So I actually had the all right stuff, the all right metals, shall we say, to start with. Wicked. I think I had no clue what I was playing, but it sounded good to me.
Oh, good stuff. So while we're talking about equipment, obviously you've got a kit right next to you there. So on in a normal world when we're out gigging and recording and stuff, what equipment are you currently using?
Okay, so Gretsch drums, one of which I've got here. Nice little Brooklyn. This kit actually, I bought this one as my kind of sort of taking everywhere kit, beta kit, I guess. But it's actually, I had this up in Abbey Road last week, and it's been in so many different studios these last few months, and it was supposed to be my sort of kit to get me through tight situations, but it's actually been my main kit. Nice little 18-inch kick, 10 and 12 and 14. It's been amazing. Love it. So Gretsch drums, and I use a similar one live. Similar finish, but I've just ordered a new broadcaster, which is currently being made, hopefully anyway, over in America. It's due to be with me in a couple of months, so we're going to be using that on the new tour. Zildjian cymbals, who have been amazing to me in the past. Got a couple here. Vic Firth sticks. Remo heads. Mustn't forget anyone. DW hardware. A set of Ultimate in-ears at the moment. What am I missing? Porter and Davies. Protection racket. Can't forget them. And Roland Electronics. I
There
think
you
that's
go.
it.
That's a pretty
Hopefully I've got one.
comprehensive list. Yeah, nice.
It is, man. But you got to, it's these people are incredible companies, and
Yeah.
you I don't want to seem like I'm buttering anyone up, but you have to, man. If they've gone out of their way to make your life easier on the road, you have to give a bit back, and they're all amazing people, and I love the stuff. Genuinely, it's not just endorsements for endorsement's sake. It's
Mhm.
genuine love for what they do. So yeah,
Mm.
big up all them companies.
Awesome. Now, I think this is quite a hard question. Some people have found this really, really, really easy. So here we go. If you had to pick just one, who would be your all-time favorite drummer?
That is a difficult question. I think 2 points. I'm going to extend it a little bit, maybe, to get
That's good.
around it. 2 times in my life, I've been like proper blown. Maybe 3 actually, where I've been absolutely blown away, and it's made me kind of um, rethink everything I'm doing about drums. First time was obviously when I first started with Dave Grohl. Second time was Mike Clark. When I heard Thrust Herbie Hancock album, it's like, what the hell is this? It's like next level stuff. And then the third guy was Chris Dave. When I saw him with Rob Glasper up at Ronnie's, it was just like, man, what? Actually, no, it wasn't Robert Glasper. It was with Pino, on a Pino Palladino gig, and it was just like this dude's. So between those three, I think probably, I think Chris Dave.
My next question is, what's been the highlight of your career so far? And then if you could also tell us about what you've been up to recently.
Well, very fortunately, and thanks to a lot of people, there's been quite a few highlights, and picking one is tricky. Got to be honest. Glastonbury other stage 2017 was pretty big. That was pretty big, and it would take a lot to top that. But having said that, there's so many good things. I remember on my first gig on the Rag and Bone Man, on the Rag and Bone Man gig. Back then, it was just me and Rory. That's his name. And another rapper called Stig, and me, and I was driving them around in my car for a best part of 2 weeks around the UK, and that was incredible, man. Like just playing sort of academies and venues that I'd never played in before. With Bastille, actually, we were on the second support on their tour, and it was wicked. I mean, that was just insane. But again, as you grow with the project, the goalposts move, and ambition becomes bigger with every tour, and you want to do things, new things, be in new places, see new faces, and playing with other people on the same bill as you is just nuts at festivals. Sometimes it's like, dude, Queens of the Stone Age, wow, okay, that's pretty nuts. For example, that was a highlight. I think really Glastonbury other stage was wicked. Never seen that many people just there before in front of a stage, and it's to the point where it's like, this is not even as, I can't comprehend that many people, so I'm just gonna do this, and it's gonna be awesome. And it was great, man. As far as what we've done recently, I mean, fortunately, we've obviously within the rules and regs, been able to do some recording, which has been awesome for the Rag and Bone Man thing, and for a few other people as well. A couple of albums and singles here and there, because everyone is obviously hot to trot with the recording thing at the moment, home recordings and things like that. So been busying myself with that, really. Been down here buying mics, trying out mic positions, going back over old practice material, because things sound very different once you play things through the mics sometimes, and you have to sort of reevaluate a few things, which is always good. It's always good, always learning. But yeah, man, it's been I think, just to touch on the lockdown situation and recording situation, I think it's a really good time for musicians, at least, to grow and realize that they've actually got the biggest opportunity in their lives, probably, when nothing's going on. Obviously, there are many negative things about this time, and of course there are, but we're not going to get the time back. like this without the distractions to go and hide away somewhere for 24/7 and practice those singles, practice say I don't know, recording yourself, or practice things that you don't get a chance to practice. Because when, for example, for me, if we'd be out on the road at the moment, that's what we were due to be doing. So that's been put back, and you can't practice on the road. So I'm looking forward to that first gig we get, and it's going to be like, cool, man. I want to be pretty powered up, in terms of the time I've had. So yeah. So it's actually been a really busy time, man. I mean, a lot of it's been learning, and a lot of it's been adjusting, and a lot of it's been figuring things out. How to approach an online session, how to approach online teaching, how to operate safely in a recording studio. But it's all been positive, I would say, in a world of negatives at the moment, of course, for the industry. And fortunately, I can say that it's been a positive experience in terms of output. But of course, taking into account the unfortunate situations that people are in at the moment, it's not great. But again, music does conquer all in some capacity.
Yeah, totally. Now, from an education point of view, for this question, so when you first get a gig with a new artist, whether it be a tour or a recording, how do you learn the songs? So do you learn them just by ear, just by listening? Do you listen and then transcribe? Or has it happened where someone's gone, here you go, Ben, here's the entire thing, like every song written out in drum music for you to read through on the night?
I'm not a pit musician or playing with big bands at the moment. It's not something that's in my catchment area at the moment. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, and it's something that I'd like to do perhaps later down the line. But at the moment, it's always been ear. Here are the stems, here are the tracks. You got a month to get it down before we go into pre-prod. Or we'll be around Rory's, before lockdown, jamming together and coming up with stuff. The MD might say, "How about you try this?" And it's like, "Okay, cool, I'll try that." And in that case, if it's in a live situation, I'll have a notebook, transcribing little parts, writing stuff down that probably I'll only ever understand, and even then, that's a bit of a push. But squiggly notes, transcriptions, they help. They always help. It's always good to know how to read and write music, regardless of how much you're using it. But for me, it's all ears, and in the pop world, I think that's quite common. And I think being able to recall and being able to process stuff through the ear is always the first point of call for me, because it's still transcription. It's just because you're not making it an academic study. It's like, if you don't need it, then it's a difficult skill. Like I've worked with MDs in the past who have just got meticulous memory and recall ability that is just dumbfounding. They're able to control a whole room and remember everyone's parts and their own, and then still give direction. And it's like, dude, how are you doing that? It's incredible. And I would always used to ask these people, how do you get around that? It's just like, well, just listen to music, listen out for melody lines and textures and parts that just work. And I think something always comes up when I'm teaching, and it's something I try and do a lot more of now, is when you're in those situations, if you're creating a track, or if you're giving your interpretation of a track, which often happens in a live situation. So if you're going from, okay, you've got the album out, you've got a studio version of a song, you come to tour it, it's not always the case where it's just going to be, cut and paste the same thing. You're often having different versions of tunes. You have to amp the energy up, you have to change the part, not completely, but completely rethink how you're going to do it. You might have electronics, you might be triggering stuff, and there's all sorts of things that can be going on. And the same rings true in a recording studio. If you're laying a track down, I always say to my students that the worst thing you can do is to go in there and think, okay, what can I do here, as opposed to what should I do here. And they start jazzing over everything, and they hear maybe a sample or something. It's like, oh, cool, let's try and recreate that. Let's try and play that on the pad while doing all this. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. And and I've done this before, And before you know it, you've got this sort of cacophony of stuff all going on, and then an MD is going to look at that and say, well, take that out, take that out, take that out, take that out, and you've got pretty much a list of about 20 things at the end that you've got to try and remember that they've had to work on picking out of your playing, and then you've got to remember it when you play it again the next time, and you're already in a really bad situation there, because like 20 things is just not cool. So I always say to my students in that situation, go in with bare bones, almost try and do the most minimal thing you can. So all someone's got to do is say, mark every 4 bars with a crash, a couple of kick drums melody in the fourth bar to make it a 4-bar phrase, and a couple of fill-ins that sound roughly the same that mark chorus changes or a pre or something like that. And then you've probably got 3 or 4 things, and the whole process, going back to our previous thing about the recall situation, it just makes everything a far easier process.
When you're recording something with an artist and there's quite a lot of electronics involved, how do you go about recreating that electronic sounding stuff live? So, what would be your role there? Because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the drummer's job to trigger samples or to play a triggered kick or a triggered snare. So how's that work for you?
Well, it's always run at the moment through SPD and trigger pads. So we'll get the original one shot or the original stem, and we'll program into an SPD, and that'll be triggered off. Having said that, with the Rag and Bone project, we've particularly in the last tour, everything's going a bit more organic, or a lot more organic. So we're doing things more. What's the word? I guess ambient sounds and things that you can create with drums and with textures and things like that. It's not to say there's no electronics involved. Sometimes there probably will be, because we haven't toured the new stuff yet, and it's not even out. Only 1 tune is, so you can kind of get the vibe off that 1 tune actually, but it's different. So we have to kind of think about how we're going to do things, perhaps more, as I said, organically. But most of the time, it will be getting stems down, chuck them on SPD. And making that efficient. It can be a really difficult thing to do, especially when you're on a big stage, because an SPD pad looks big in a studio, but it looks anything but when you're on a big stage. And when you're playing, volume tends to go up a little bit, and excitement, blood pumping, and you're trying to hit a pad, and it's like, okay, cool, get that bright luminous duct tape around that thing so I can see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And also I love to use those Roland 1-shot bars.
Yeah. BT1.
Yeah, man, they're awesome. It just makes everything so much nicer, because you can play it like a drum kit then, rather than a and the SPD pads are wicked, and that's always been a mainstay for me since the project began, because it is just so easy. And then for sort of signature tracks, like if we're playing Human, for example, that's got a very characteristic snare sound with the kind of tambourine jingle on it. So we would run a snare trigger off that, and maybe a kick trigger as well, just to sort of take the pressure off having to think about the electronics too much. They're just there. But yeah, you got to be careful with that though as well, which I found, because if you're used to playing a lot of ghost notes, for example, and you've got a trigger on your snare, you've got to make sure those settings are pretty dialed in, otherwise you're going to end up just like with a hurricane of notes coming down the PA.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been there, definitely.
You'll have, yeah, you'll have. Hear it back. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Better stop doing that.
And you know what? That leads me quite nicely onto my next question. Have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from?
I mean, we've never had gig enders, if you know what I mean by that. Nothing sort of drastically. I mean, you're always going to get things that flux within a gig. We did actually. What happened once? Had RF issues in the past. Actually happened at Glastonbury, weirdly, where packs were dropping out. And if anyone's not sure of how that is, it's like, you're hearing each other in your radio pack, and somewhere like Glastonbury, where you've got frequencies bouncing all over the place, sometimes you can get dropouts, and that happened to us. I think it happened to Rory and happened to me for a bit as well. And if you're relying on stuff in here and that goes, it's like, okay, cool. Well, let's.
Were you to click at that point as well?
For that tune, we were, yeah, but it was kind of cool. It kind of worked out, and you know what? Like, I think you can look at that stuff and you can go back and think, oh no, it's terrible. But really, man, it never really is, and
No.
it kind of worked out. And everyone on stage is so good at what they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, I'm within that remit with them, but you know, I won't judge myself. But you know, you're able to recover. You know, you've got your internal pulse. You've got, you know, you worst comes to the worst, you just turn the click off. You know what I mean, and just do it as it is. But as I said, the whole project, I think, since that point has gone very, very organic, and you know, without relying on. And everything we do now is no click.
Mm.
There is no click anymore, which is a completely different environment, and a very good one, because it I think quite necessarily so. The pop world is very clicked up, if you know what I mean. You know, you'll go on a pop gig and expect to be on click, and that's fine. Of course, it's necessary for things like, you know, lighting and pyro on stage if you've got that going on, and just to be locked in with the tune. If it's got to be rigid, it's got to be to the click. It's, you know, it's got to be bang on. You're gonna have to play to a click. But I think Rory just loves. He loves every show to be different and characteristic. I mean, his voice just is the main thing. So that needs to carry the song, really. And we're there just to kind of be like, okay, cool. If that's where it's going, that's where it's going. Do you know what I mean? A click can be quite restricting, I think, in certain environments. If a song needs to push and pull. So yeah.
Yeah.
Another time, actually, I think, where were we in? I think we're in Auckland or somewhere like that. And yeah, the click just went. Laptop went down. Click was gone. Track 2, I think, the album, and it's like, I mean, there wasn't much on there. I think there was just a tiny bit of percussion and a click. But that had gone, so I had no reference for the whole rest of the gig, and it was like, oh god damn it, okay, that's cool. Been used to that for the last like 3 or 4 years. I wonder what's going to happen now. And it was actually like, it was pretty scary, but it kind of worked out, because you're just like, okay, cool, chill. It's like just a click.
Yeah, it is. When it first happens, it's terrifying, isn't it? But then you've got to think, well, hang on a minute, I've been playing for years without a click. I can manage this.
Yeah, it's all good. I think sometimes, and I say this to my students a lot as well, click is cool, but it's not everything. You've got to be able to play in time, of course you have, and the click is a ridiculously good instrument to use as a practice tool. And if you think of it as an instrument or a percussion instrument, it can be. I was doing something earlier, actually, moving click exercise, where it can become a percussive instrument that you actually play along with, rather than it being this sort of ruthless dictator of what you've got to do on a track. It's like, okay, cool, just make friends with it. You know what I mean? And then once you start creating your own pulse in relation to the click, you can quite nicely just start getting used to playing without it, and have it be as comfortable as playing with it, which I think is important. And it's not something that, you know, we always do.
Cool, good stuff. Now, a couple of curveball questions for you. First one of those is, what are your hobbies away from drums? Don't say knitting or anything like that. I mean,
oh god. Oh, god damn. It takes up quite a lot of time doing music, you know. I'm sure you do know.
Yeah. And the reason I've put this question in is because just because drums are our livelihood doesn't mean they can't still be our hobby.
Well, yeah, the reason I do this is because I love it, of course, and it is a hobby that's very much become a career and a business. But you know, you have to chill sometimes. So yeah, I probably what do I do to fill my time? Do you know, I'm gonna stitch myself up here. I'm actually I'm actually quite into, like, old school like WWF wrestling.
Okay. I used to be into that back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's why I used to watch it when I was a kid, and now I'm sort of like just going back over some like old school videos, listening to some podcasts and stuff, and it's like, do you know what? I don't even care that this is a bit like weird. It's
Are we
cool.
are we like in the like Mankind era or earlier?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, that kind of thing. Like I remember loving it as a kid, and it's like, do you know what? Nearly 35. I can admit to liking this now. It's all good. I'm not sort of into well, I'm not saying I'm not into it. I'm not up to date with it as such. But you know, it's just a nice thing to at the end of the day put a little podcast on just to wash away the stuff, the stress, or if anything's like bubbling over. It's cool, man. And then um, football, like following football. I don't particularly you know, it doesn't rule my life, but me and Rory have been over to see Brighton play a fair few times over at the Amex, so we have a good time with that. And yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah, I like it. Doesn't I don't like to get it so it stresses me out though. You know, football can be quite intense, so I watch it as a sort of not a neutral, because again I do follow Brighton, but not I don't let it rule my life. Music does enough of that for me.
Cool. And this is how much I used to be into wrestling. I remember very vividly getting told off for choke slamming my brother onto the bed.
Oh yeah, man! Don't get me started. Me and my brother used to do that all the time.
Oh, there we go.
He used to have all the moves down. Yeah, it was wicked. Yeah, and actually, like I don't know, it's a weird one. It'd be something I'd be interested in trying one day. But you
I
know,
remember what was the other one where was it Triple H's move where you get the arms behind the back and then like
oh,
down?
pedigree. Yeah,
Yeah.
Stone Cold Stunner was always my favorite, man. That was wicked. Just looked so cool. Yeah, man, it's great. It's just fun, isn't it? You know, you know, you don't take it too seriously, and it's just I know they do, because it's no mean feat getting bashed around like that all the
No.
time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm not sure how well it would go with drumming, like having all those injuries stack up over the years. But you know, it's fun. I enjoy it.
And from wrestling and being in shape to my next question, really important question. What's your favorite biscuit?
Biscuit. What are we qualifying as a biscuit here? Is a Kit Kat a biscuit?
Oh,
Or are you
now
talking like strictly biscuits?
see, no one's mentioned a Kit Kat before. I mean, Jaffa Cakes come up, and I know the answer there, but Kit Kat,
Probably not, is it? It's probably a
I don't know,
chocolate.
because like for example, a Twix, would you say that's a biscuit? Well, it's a chocolate bar, isn't it? Does that count as a
It
biscuit?
is. Do you know what? I'm gonna go for a custard cream. Let's go for a strict biscuit. Custard
Okay,
cream for me. Can't go
but
wrong with
if
one.
you were choosing a chocolate bar, it'd be a Kit Kat.
No, no. If it's a chocolate bar, it'd be a double decker
Oh yes,
or a
yeah.
cream egg.
Oh, see now that's funny. Two of the three things you've just said. Lockdown, by the way, really bad for the diet. Two of the things you said I've eaten today: a cream egg and a custard cream.
Well, I've not had either of those, unfortunately.
I bought three of them. One for my wife, one for me, one for my little boy. And she was like, "He can't have that. He's mental enough as it is. It's full of sugar." And I was like, "All right, I'll just have that one then today, and then we'll have the other ones tomorrow." Anyway, and the next part to that question, would you dunk the custard cream?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I think it is, to be honest, a no-brainer because the one I had today, I dunked in my tea and it was actually amazing. It's
yeah.
yeah,
It's good. I
best.
don't really have them around the house though. Really, biscuits. It's not something I sort of tend to buy. Weird.
It's one of those bad things, especially at this time. I've put loads of biscuits on the shop, and then they're just in the cupboard. And of course, when they're there, that's it. They just give it a week and they're all gone, and it's just bad, bad. So anyway, so back to serious questions, and this is the last question. So if you could give just one bit of advice to people starting out learning the drums, what would that be?
So wherever possible, I think the answer would be is to play with other musicians as much as possible, because I think that is it's quite a common thing now that I find, particularly with younger students, where they might be having lessons, they might be playing their drums, but they're doing it in their bedroom or wherever it is, the living room, on their own a lot to tracks, which is cool. But nothing will prepare you for a gig more than playing with other musicians will. And it is the best kind of practice that you could ever hope for. So, and if you get used to doing that from an early age, man, it's just going to do ridiculous things for your playing. And then you get used to communicating with people. You can then start going out when you're a bit older to jams. You get better socially, and I think that's what music's all about anyway. It's communicating with people, sharing experiences, and having a good time, basically. And if you can turn that into a career and a business, then all the better for it. But that's not going to happen from just playing drums in your bedroom. To an extent, it could these days if you want to do the YouTube cover thing, which is totally cool. All up for that. But for me, man, there's got to be a social element to it when it's safe, of course. I hate having to say that, but you know what I mean. It's get playing with other people when you can, and just help the musicians network grow and the community, because as we know, the drum community is just wicked at the moment. I think it's not being biased. I get people talk to me all the time about, you know, loads of drum events going on, loads of drum chats and drum things here and there, and it's like the community of drummers is so strong and supportive, and I think that should be a mainstay and a thing we try and push across all music, no matter what we're playing, no matter what kind of music, classical musicians, metal musicians, anything, man. It's important at the moment. Everyone pulls together, especially with the current climate. And that can all start from the first lesson.
So Ben, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.